Let's fucking go! Football's back. My name's Phoenix, and I'm joined by my beautiful friend Matthew. Say hi, Matthew. We're tackling some NFL football. We're going to be tackling boom and busts today. We have 5 booms each and 5 busts. Before we do that, let's get into some NFL news. How do you feel about the Ezekiel Elliott and the Pats? I feel like it's kind of like just depth at this point because they have no running back too.
Fantasy-wise, I wasn't in on Ramondre Stevenson anyway, so it doesn't affect much for me. His value does go down a little bit, but I still think he's definitely going to be the main back.
Yeah, I think he loses a bit of goal line work, but I mean, I had Ramondre in like my top 10. He probably only falls to like 12 for me. I still think he's a viable running back 1 in like 12-team leagues or high-end running back 2. So yeah, the Zeke signing doesn't really affect me, especially because it was only like $3 million. It totals like $6 million, but I think it's $3 million, then plus incentives and a signing bonus. So it's not much. The big one that affected us, the Dalvin to the Jets, is kind of brutal, but he's also hurt right now. He still has a shoulder issue, so I still think it's Breece Hall season. What do you think?
That one's really interesting to navigate because they do both have injuries, and they're both kind of iffy going into the season. All in on Breece Hall. I think that even both healthy, Breece Hall is still going to get at least 60-40. And with what he was doing before he even became that role last year, I think he's going to do just fine. Quick, Zeke is, I think, going to get less and less touches as the season goes on for many reasons. So
I can see that. I mean, there's also just he kind of just breaks down, and then it's Ramondre Stevenson workload up the ass sort of type of vibe in New England, like it was last year when Damian Williams, or not Damian Williams. Wow, that was huge. Damian Harris went down. But yeah, I don't see Zeke as a huge threat. Dalvin Cook, I see as a minor threat just for now because, Breece isn't exactly 100% healthy. He did just get off the PUP list, which is really helpful for Breece Hall owners like yourself. But, I mean, they obviously signed Dalvin for a reason. They're going to utilize him unless, the shoulder becomes more of an issue for Dalvin Cook. A 60-40 split, I think Breece Hall should, in theory, take over as the starter, but we'll see what happens.
The news this morning was huge. I even texted you. I was very excited to see that Breece Hall was off the PUP and ahead of Dalvin on the timetable.
I definitely think Cook isn't going to do too much. I just think with their injuries kind of lining up, Cook might not even make that much of an impact in general, which would be ideal, obviously.
Yeah, but, and he's very injury prone already as well. So,
yeah, exactly. All right, let's into our boom and busts. And just real quick, because I completely skipped over like some of the introduction because I was so fucking hyped.
that was one of the hypest intros I've ever heard, and I had no clue it was coming, so that was I loved it.
So we're gonna be talking primarily like we'll cover football news and like everything NFL, but also a lot of fantasy football. We're both huge into fantasy football. So our podcast name, Moving the Chains, obviously implies we're going to be heavily into everything fantasy football. Comment your questions, whatever you want. We'll respond. It'll just be a huge mesh of shit, and it'll be so much fun to talk about. But anyways, we're going to get into our booms to start. The guy that you fucking took from me when you texted me yesterday, hey, do I choose Kelsey or this guy if Eckler goes, is Tyreek Hill. And I genuinely think with the way the offense is set up this year, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to get like a 50% to 60% target share. I have no faith in the running game as far as Raheem Mostert, OB Jeff Wilson, Devon A-Chain. I don't really trust any of the backfield in Miami. And I genuinely think, like I said, Tyreek Hill should get like a 30% target share. Jalen Waddle should get like a 25% target share. But if you're drafting in the top 5, even if you're trying to think of someone for your first or second pick, I honestly don't hate Tyreek. Shouting to the skies, he's going to get 2,000 yards this season. And I don't think he's going to be too far off because you got his best quarterback was out and he got 1,700 yards and finished as a wide receiver like 2 or 3. So even though you stole him from me, I'm getting him in my other leagues for sure.
Well, I love that pick out of you. I've been in on him since, beginning of the preseason. And, I mean, I think he's going to hit the 2,000 yards. I really do. Or if not, come very close. If you think of all the teams in the NFL, what teams are passing teams or running teams? Of all the passing teams that you can think of, the Dolphins are one of those where it is all passing. Like with the 49ers, you could be like, oh, that's a passing team. But they also have a fantastic running game. But there is nobody in the Miami backfield that makes me second guess getting a receiver. And it's also a boom pick because he's going not first in drafts most of the time, enough that could go from late first round to early first round or first pick, I think. And I'm all in on him, so I loved that that was the first one you had.
Yeah. I do like his value because he's like what 8th or 7th in a lot of fantasy football sites. So I just think it's such a smash spot for like picking 5, 6, 7. I see your next one up here, even though we touched on him, but go ahead and talk about our boy Breece Hall.
My boy Breece Hall. Like I said, he's even with Dalvin there, he's still gonna have at least the 60-40, which in his first 5-6 games last year, he was getting 15 plus fantasy points. He wasn't even getting that many touches. He was still getting these NFL, and he still was going crazy. And then when he first started getting the workload that he might still end up getting this year, especially if Dalvin goes down, I honestly think he could have finished as the running
back 1. Damn, that's a shot. That's a calling shot. Yeah,
maybe not this year, but I can see it happening. And another thing I want to say is that Aaron Rodgers loves to throw to his running backs, and if anything, he is going to be the receiving back. So can't go wrong there.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that. I think obviously we don't pray or hope for injuries, but if anything were to happen to Cook, I think Breece Hall would be like a top 6 running back play every week. So you have that sort of upside if anything were to happen with Cook's shoulder, because throughout his career mostly. And then even if Cook stays healthy, I still think he's the top 12 play every week, top 10 play every week, depending on matchup. So I definitely like that one a lot. All right. The next one I have, so in on this man, it's insane. It's Tony Pollard. I was so stressed. The rankings moved on the ESPN site that we used for our draft. He went from like 20th overall to 12th. And I picked like 16th overall. So the fact that he went past my pick and I still got him, I was so happy. But Tony Pollard's going to be an absolute beast this year. There are concerns about like, well, is he going to be like the workhorse? He doesn't need to be the workhorse to a top 3, top 4 running back. So I think the question of like, oh, he might only get like 20 touches a game. Like that argument, I think we are so desensitized to backs like Henry getting like 30 carries a game. We don't need that out of Tony Pollard. I'm perfectly fine with 15 carries a game, and then he'll get like 6 targets or 5 targets. So I think even with some limited work, you saw anytime he would get like 55% of snaps, he would get over 20 points per game. There was one worry for me about him earlier on in the season where Zach Martin was holding out. So now he's back in camp. He's one of the better offensive linemen in the league. Smash Tony Pollard in the middle to back end of the second round. I feel like that's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think I'm as in on him as you are, but you're right. He just doesn't need those like Henry does, and it makes them great. Pollard, he's one of those running backs that I despise. That's one of those RB2s that somebody starts against you and they do better than your RB1 last year. And with him, even if he's not a full-on workhorse, this year is definitely going to be a great year for him. And I think that's an amazing pick still.
Oh, yeah, exactly. All right. The next one that you got up, DJ Moore. Liked him.
DJ
62-yard catch.
Score before I saw the actual play. I was like 62 yards. I was like, dang, Justin Fields is already looking like a better quarterback. And then I saw that it was a screenplay. So it was really just a DJ Moore play. But
Justin Fields did nothing to get
I know.
touchdowns.
I know. I saw that. I was like, dang, he's insane. And then I was like, wait.
Little
But
sidearm.
no,
That's it.
love DJ Moore. Super talented. Has never had the quarterback to get him there. I'm thinking that Fields can, I'm not saying definitely, but can progress enough in passing this season in order to do that. Help him be able to do that. It is going to be DJ Moore. And he's going so low in drafts right now. He's somebody that I'm targeting in every single draft. I think I reached on him a little bit last night in our draft as well, because he's just, I am so in on him. And he's got Claypool and Mooney behind him, who are solid receivers, but I don't think are that wide receiver one that an offense is looking for, like DJ Moore is. And he's going to get the targets. He's going to make the plays when he gets those targets. So as you can see, any receiver that's getting those free receptions and the screens like that and can make their own plays, that's something you want to go for. And I think he's going to have a fantastic season.
I'm getting more and more in on him. I think with him, I do agree, it's just a matter of he just needs the right quarterback. He had Baker and PJ Walker last year. So now that he actually is like a solid number one in an offense where hopefully Fields can pass the ball a little bit more. And even if he doesn't, like let's say that Fields still just gets like 3,200 yards, I still think he'll get you some good weeks for sure.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing up PJ Walker, because first of all, honestly, he was my favorite quarterback that he had last year, which is not saying a lot. But PJ Walker had that end of game 60-yard dot to DJ Moore. Yeah. And DJ Moore is one of those receivers that can get you those one play deep balls to set your whole week with one play too. And that's always nice to have.
Real quick, my next guy. It's such a Panthers thing to throw a deep bomb with 0 seconds left, choke it, and lose to the Falcons. They're one of the most choke-heavy teams in the league. It's so funny to me as a Saints fan. But anyway.
I'm still mad about that play. Panthers is one of those teams for me that I like to root for, even like though they're not my team. And that game was insane. And I was like, sweet. And then DJ Moore got that penalty for taking off his helmet, which backed it up, which the kicker still should have made. And it wasn't even DJ Moore's fault. He was way off the field. Maybe not way off the field, but he was like, there was no point for that penalty. And that was tough to watch. But
I mean, taking their helmet off and celebrated like that, I can't fault them too much, honestly.
Right. It was a celebration on what could have been the play of the year. Moving on to your next pick, I don't agree with as much as you, but let's hear it from you. Chris Olave.
I don't want to hear it. I think Olave is going to be such a stud this year. Just from some of the stats that I've looked at, he has Derek Carr now, obviously, instead of whoever we had last year. But Derek Carr was like top, I think, like 7 or 8 as far as deep throws last year. He was not pass heavy. That's dumb. But he would throw the ball deep, like on like 13 or 14% of his throws. Olave, like a middle of the field and deep receiver. So I think that'll be huge for Olave. Getting those deep targets, I think, is going to be absolutely clutch for him. In an offense where you have a second receiver that can take away some of the, double teams or harder corners, in Michael Thomas, you have Alvin Kamara. So, like, there's enough weapons in this offense to where no team is going to solely focus on Olave. And I think with the percentage of throws that Derek Carr has downfield, a lot of those will go to Olave, 11 to 1,200 yard receiver at least. I got some money on him in a little FanDuel bet. 6 touchdowns this year. I think he smashes that. I think it's like 8 or 9. So I'm pretty high on him.
I think that's understandable, and I think he can definitely smash that 6 touchdown. And I'm not fully out on him, but Derek Carr is a quarterback who he's a solid quarterback, but he's not in a place where he's going to go up. I think he can only decline. And while Chris Olave is currently the number 1 in that offense, you've also got Michael Thomas coming back, who last time he saw a full season in the league was insane. And those are not targets you want taken away from a guy like Chris Olave. So while I still think fantastic pick where he's going, I would not personally take him.
Well, let's be realistic. Thomas can be out by like week 2 with a toe injury. It's fine.
That's probably true.
But
And I would put more stock in him if Jameis Winston was the quarterback, personally.
I think that's nuts. We don't have to agree on everything, just like your next pick, Drake London. I find bizarre, but go for it.
All right. So, firstly, I want to say that, and this is going to come up later, the problem with the Falcons offense, because they look really good on paper. The problem is the players I don't think are utilized in the way they should, and that does include Drake London. I think he could have had much better rookie season if he was used correctly. If Marcus Mariota played better. Personally, I like Mariota, but he did not have his best season last season. But he's the clear one in that offense. I'm honestly not even sure if I can name a receiver behind him at the moment, aside from Kyle Pitts. But they like to have Kyle Pitts blocking, and he doesn't get as many targets as he should either. But there's one thing that I think can change that in this offense, and that is Desmond Ridder. And that's not because I think he's going to be an absolutely insane quarterback in his second year or anything like that. I think he's going to do solid. But I think the important thing is at the end of the season last season, he showed that he liked throwing to Drake London. And if you have a quarterback that likes somebody like that, when he drops back, that's who he's going to be looking for. And Drake London is a talented receiver. If he's got a quarterback looking for him like that, he can definitely have a better season. And with Bijan Robinson coming in, I think that they can get towards the end zone more and give him more opportunities for touchdowns.
Fair enough. The reason he kind of it's just off my board is the Falcons were one of the most run-heavy teams last year. Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson. Imagine what they're going to be doing with Bijan Robinson at the helm. And then Desmond Ridder's not someone you really a top-tier quarterback. So I think London will have his games, absolutely, but I don't think he'll finish very high on any sort of wide receiver rankings by the end of the year. But, hey, you know what? You got to go for it. You got to take your shots. I
want to say real quick to that, though. I'm not saying boom, like he's going to be like wide receiver top 5, but I could see him maybe being in the top 12, which is a huge difference from last season. So
I can see him being top 35. Yeah, absolutely.
Top 35. All right, let's move on to your next one, who is in a very crowded receiver room, but I still like Tyler Lockett.
I absolutely love Tyler Lockett, and it's not even the fact. Okay, so like obviously, like you said, they have a crowded room. They have DK Metcalf. They have now JSN, but I just want to point out a couple of things that some people might not be aware of. JSN appeared in 0 of the 2 wide receiver sets. It was Hit and Lockett. So to me, that helps when they're in 2 wide receiver sets. Don't really have to worry about JSN coming in for Lockett very much, at least as of the beginning of the year. And B, Lockett in at least ESPN rankings right now is ranked as the wide receiver 30, top 15 wide receiver like the last 5 years. He's just one of those. He's one of those names that's so under the radar, not known as a big play kind of guy, unless you're like a Seahawks fan or an avid fantasy football player who's had him on your team. There are going to be weeks where he throws up a couple of duds because, you know, they have JSN, they have DK Metcalf, they have Walker. That's fair. But even last year, I think you finished as, I mean, quote me if I'm wrong, but like the wide receiver 13 or 14. I think this is just a smash pick as far as value. I don't even think he's inside the top 20, top 24 ranked wide receivers in any sort of fantasy football platform. Last year's wide receiver 13, 14, 15, whatever it was in that range for such a discount is huge. And I think it just continues. They have the 4th easiest or 5th easiest, one of the 2, wide receiver schedule this upcoming year. I just think he's such a smash pick in the back of the 6th, 7th round sort of thing.
I'm with you. I am. Lockett has been a fantastic receiver since he's been in the league. He's always doing great things. One thing that I thought you said that was funny, though, is the big play thing. For me, he is one of those big play guys. I think of him as much higher Mike Williams. He is able to get those deep balls, and I love Geno. Geno was throwing some of the greatest deep passes I have ever seen last year. perfectly into Lockett's arms, something as a receiver you cannot ask for better. And I don't think Geno's going to stop this year. I think those plays are going to continue. I think teams are going to put their best corner on DK. I'm not taking DK in any drafts. And I think Tyler Lockett is the guy to go for on that offense for sure. So,
yeah, I'm glad you brought up
a lot of people.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I understand a lot of people are out on him this year, but I definitely think he's still a fantastic pick and has the opportunity for another top 15 season.
I agree. And I like that you brought up Mike Williams. This is probably a hot take, but I would take Lockett over Williams pretty much in any sort of drafts. I know they're somewhat close together.
Mike 11 times out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I can't deal with Mike Williams. He's too inconsistent. Lockett's kind of the guy that he's the guy that I like for sure. Now, your next one, I'm too many people, at least, who are going to be high on this guy like you are, and Javonte Williams. So take it away.
That's fair. Javonte Williams is a very talented running back who, as you know, out for the season last season. He's coming back from that ACL, which is a little tough, but he came back from it one of the fastest times ever already. He's going to play in the preseason, which I'm excited to see. I think this is a relative boom for me. I think that he has the opportunities, maybe a top 10 running back finish. But once again, nothing insane for this one. I think it's just relative compared to where people have him. Obviously, where he was last year, being out all season, and just that opportunity. He's in a Broncos offense that is in desperate need of playmakers, given that their most hyped up two receivers have still not done much for the entire time that they've been there. Russell Wilson, who has been struggling. I think Javonte Williams is that guy. And the only guy behind him is Samaje Perine, who's definitely going to take some of the passing work. But Javonte Williams is going to be the touchdown guy, the goal line guy. He's still going to get passing work and is the playmaker that they need in that offense to be better than 2-15 this season, in my opinion.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I think if he can somehow come away from this injury okay, then I think he'll be really good this season. I don't like the fact that Samaje Perine's in the backfield with him. I think that definitely hinders his ups. At the same time, people are probably not going to be drafting Javonte Williams purely because of his injury when he's come out and said, he'll be there second preseason game. So we'll see what happens. I think it's a risky one. But
that's the other thing I meant to say too, is I think it's hilarious that Sean Payton's there and said what he said. I'm guessing everybody is aware at this point, which is, first of all, not something you can say. But he's going to do everything he can to make sure that he backs himself up for saying that. And I think Javonte Williams is once again an important part of that system that he's not gonna let not happen,
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving into your next one, I think this is the biggest disagreement we're gonna have, because this one I do not see at all. But wow. Go ahead.
Disagreement hurts my feelings there. All right. Well, it's Khalil Herbert, who I was lucky enough to grab in the 10th round yesterday. I love Khalil Herbert so much. I might be a little bit biased because, the last couple of years where DeMont has been out, I pick him up and he just goes absolutely ballistic. Realistically, I think that's part of the reason you should be in on him. When he was the starting running back last year and whenever DeMont was hurt 2 years ago, but within the last 2 years, he's been putting up insane numbers on the ground, going for 100 yards against one of the harder rushing defenses in Tampa Bay a year or 2 years ago. And this year, he's at such a good discounted price. If you are wide receiver heavy in the beginning of, the first, second, third, those sort of rounds, I think he's a perfect running back 2 or 3 to grab. And let's not forget to mention preseason game. Again, Justin Fields in the 7 snaps in that preseason game. Khalil Herbert was on the field for all 7. It's not that he flipped out for Rashawn Johnson. No, it was all Khalil Herbert. So at least as of this recording, Khalil Herbert is the starter And we saw that with how they wanted to split up their snaps because they didn't split them up. It was all Khalil Herbert with starters. So I think getting a starting running back, pretty solid offense if Justin Fields can take a step. Yeah, there is a bit of a concern that the Bears having, the 20th, 21st ranked offensive line, not great, but he's been able to do it in the last 2 years, even with a crappy offensive line. So I think Khalil Herbert is my favorite sleeper of this year. I think he can finish well above his ADP of being in the running back 35 to 40. I think he finishes as a top, if he's healthy all year, a top 25 back.
You were pretty convincing there for a second, but I am still the complete other direction. I think one of the things that made him look great in other years is that he was the lone person behind David Montgomery, who for years has been very inefficient and I think is not a great back. But I don't think he's going to do terrible as the goal line back in Detroit. I think that's more suited to him, even though he hasn't been great on goal line carries either. But with Khalil Herbert being the starter, he's still got two, at least, definitely solid names behind him in Donta Foreman and Roschon Johnson. Donta Foreman proved himself last year on the Panthers after Christian McCaffrey that he is a solid running back, and he's one of those big power guys too. So that's not something you want, and he might get the goal line work. And then Roschon Johnson is not something I'd be worried about beginning a season, but he's one of those working running backs that has the opportunity as the season goes on to progress and take a lot of those touches from other guys, including Donta Foreman. Falcons flashback. So I don't think that I will draft him in any league, no matter what pick I get. And while he did look good alone with Montgomery other seasons, I don't think he's going to look good or as good here.
And we come to your last boom, who is not any of the positions that we have talked about so far, in TJ Hockenstein.
Yes, TJ Hockenson. He has been really weird the last couple of years. He's one of those guys that you draft early. He looks good. He's a great tight end. But then he has a lot of awful games. And then he'll break out for almost 200 yards, 30, 40 points, a couple touchdowns. And it's just like, what is going on here? Now, if there is any team that can unlock him, I know there are plenty of solid teams. They are able to unlock Justin Jefferson, who, fantastic receiver, I don't think would be doing as good as he is in a different offense. They're in need of another playmaker on there besides Justin Jefferson, especially losing Dalvin Cook, who wasn't fantastic last year due to being injured. But TJ Hockenson can be that guy, especially while Jordan Addison is still progressing. He got there late last season. I think being able to prepare this whole time to have him a big part of that offense this year, I think they're going to make him a big part of the offense. And I'm excited to see that happen. Once again, we don't know for sure that it's going to happen, but I think that there is a really good chance that will. And with that ability to have those almost 200-yard games, he's capable of it. He's one of the few tight ends in the league that is capable of that kind of work. And I'm excited about it, I got to say.
Yeah, there are very few tight ends who are very solid in their, offensive systems or the number two as far as their targets. And he got like 9 targets a game last year, the Vikings. So I like that one for sure. But moving on to our busts now. We got to bust out the busts. That was terrible. Anyways, first bust, and a lot of people are going to hate this one because A.J. Brown, big name, top 10 wide receiver. That's the issue. Therein lies the issue, because if A.J. Brown was going just a round later, I would probably put him at like a good value pick. But the fact that he's going top 15 in a lot of drafts, I think we're kind of valuing him at his ceiling. But let's not forget that those were career highs. We should not be drafting ceiling. That's like fantasy football 101 shit. You should never draft someone at their ceiling unless you have the first overall pick. These obviously do. But when it comes to A.J. Brown, I think we're drafting him at his ceiling way too high. He has Devontae Smith as competition. Red zone can be a bit of an issue because Jalen Hurts will use his legs, especially if they're inside like the 5-yard line. AJ Brown's still going to have a lot of really good games, and I think he's still a very solid pick. Somebody else in the second round, and hope he falls to you.
I'm in complete agreement, actually, and I love that you put this one here because this is one that I've thought the whole preseason, and he definitely had great games last year. Now, I will say that the target share in Philadelphia is kind of insane how much they both get, but I am not somebody who likes to take somebody that early who is one of two major weapons in that offense. Same position, I mean, and Devonta Smith is up and coming. He's still going up. I will say that I think that career high, I don't think it's going to dip too much because part of the career high reason was that he was on the Titans before, who do not like to pass. But definitely where he's going, I think that is a bust. I don't think he's going to be as consistent as last year too. He had some fluke games, one against the Steelers that we don't want to talk about, where he had 3 touchdowns and 2 of them were free, handed to him by the defense. So yeah, I'm pretty out on him as well, but he's definitely a talented receiver.
I like the Steelers bias there. I like the Steelers bias always comes into play, I'm sure. But I'm kind of out on him at his ADP. And for your first bust, I was kind of surprised that you put this one there.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, both amazing talents, have not been unlocked in the way they should have. And honestly, unless you're purposely tanking, I think that's maybe not a coaching issue, but that comes from the coaching a little bit more. Like with those kind of guys, you have to make it work and get them involved more. And Bijan Robinson is definitely one of those guys that you want to get involved as much as possible. He could have, should, and on most other teams you would expect one, 400 touch plus season. But I don't think you can expect that here, especially with the committee they had last year. They're probably going to still want at least a little bit of committee with him being the first one up, of course. And it's not like he's got bad backs behind him. Tyler Algier, solid back. Cordero Patterson, solid back. They even gave work to Chris Huntley last year, a lot more work than I don't think any other team would have given. So just where he's going, I don't think because of this offense that he should be as high as he is. Fantastic running back, amazing talent, maybe best out of the draft, but I'm just out on him.
Overdrafting him, and I see so many social media comments just saying like, how can you draft someone over CMC and Eckler when they haven't played a snap in the league? And I think that's 100% valid. We don't know his role yet. They have Tyler Algier, 1,000-yard rusher last year, so I don't think they're going to just cast him to the wayside. He's going to be at least in on third downs or at least get like more than 5 touches a game. So I think even though they have one of the best run blocking offense, I think Robinson's going to be great this year, but I don't think he should be running back 3 or 2 or whatever people are going. So
yeah, and this is not a player that you want to injure in the first season on your team, especially if you're winning games, that then is injured for the next couple of years when he could be a top 5 running back in the league each year. So
yeah, exactly.
With that said, I actually love your next one as well. Davante Adams.
I'm popping off with the busts apparently. Davante Adams is just such a freak athlete, but let's just look at the simple facts here. Like he's had great quarterback play, and I know people are going to complain about Derek Carr being great quarterback play, but at least there was chemistry there from both of them playing in college together. Carr was his college quarterback. Carr played decently, and like I said earlier, had a lot of deep passes last year, which Davante benefited from. He had 9 of his 14 touchdowns on those deep. That was huge for Davante's season last year, but Davante Adams this year now gets the amazing, beautiful downgrade of Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think is not going to be able to keep up with Davante Adams as far as past years. He's only, I think, had maybe 1 or none. I can't remember the stat, but Garoppolo has given 1,300 yards to receiver 0 times or 1 time. I can't really remember, but either way, it doesn't, because Davante Adams is not going to thrive in this offense. It's going to be a Josh Jacobs show if Josh Jacobs shows back up. Jimmy Garoppolo in the last 3 years has finished top 5 either way in yards after the catch. He just kind of dumps it off within 5 yards, and then his receivers do the rest and will run for another 15. So it looks good for Jimmy. Really, he just dumps it off within the 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. So I think he just takes a huge hit to his floor, and I just can't draft him at his wide receiver 5 to 6 price range. I probably wouldn't even take him in the second round. So
I'm not as out on him as that, I don't think. First of all, I do like Jimmy Garoppolo. You're a Jimmy Garoppolo hater, but I like Jimmy Garoppolo. Definitely doesn't have that deep ball, which hurts Devontae. But Devontae is one of those receivers that's just a fantastic route runner, and that includes anywhere, even in that 5 to 10 yard range or less that Jimmy loves. So I think he's going to be fine there, but I do think it's going to be less touchdowns. And if Jimmy goes down, I don't trust anyone behind him, and Jimmy is injury prone. And just about that deep ball, I saw this video the other day of Jimmy Garoppolo and Justin Herbert throwing these long balls, and Justin Herbert is zipping them line drive, like I think it was 40 plus yards, and dotting them. It was crazy to see the actual difference because it's not something you see in game. But yeah, he's just not that deep ball guy that's going to help Devontae out there. Yards and the touchdowns. He's still going to be the number one in the offense, and they're going to run through him in the passing game. But Josh Jacobs is there, and Devontae is currently unhappy and will only get more unhappy, I believe, as their season goes downhill, which I believe it will.
He's just too overpriced, honestly. I don't trust it at all. Talking of overpriced, talk to us about CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb, I think, is he leads that lineup for me. I will not take him in a single draft. I wouldn't take him in the 3rd round. I would think about it in the 4th, but probably not in an offense with a quarterback who loves to throw interceptions, has multiple guys there with him. Brandon Cooks in multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Michael Gallup still up and coming, tough with the injuries. I don't like drafting people in offenses where there's multiple people to throw to. He's definitely the one, but especially this year, I think one thing that fueled his other seasons that I think were better than they should have been is the fact that the Cowboys sometimes threw 50 times a game, 40 times a game. The level was insane. But they're going into a running offense this year. They're going to be running the ball even more. They're not going to be passing as much. Once again, especially with the Dak interception problem, he's already thrown a bunch in training camp. I think he's the player that I'm probably most out on.
I think CeeDee Lamb's kind of being overpriced in his. I mean, some people are taking him at the end of the 1st round in like 12-team league.
The next one you have, I am fully in on with you. Rachaad White. Let's hear it.
I was about to say, if you're fully in on this man, then you are ridiculous, because at least for ESPN leagues, I know I keep referring to ESPN ADP. He's going in like the 5th round in ESPN leagues, and like the 6th and 7th in underdog and sleeper leagues. I just think that's kind of ridiculous. Like, their offense is not going to be good because, it's going to be either Baker or Kyle Trask. I just think that's already a rough start.
I hope Kyle Trask wins.
They have a mid offensive line, which can be helpful, but Rachaad White, his yards per carry last season were not good whatsoever. I don't think he even broke 4 yards per carry the year, which I think is kind of baseline for a decent running back. And I know a lot of people are going to scream and be like, hey, but our back, he's going to catch a lot out of the backfield. And sure, yeah, he could get some catches and be a good PPR. There have already been reports out of training camp that Chase Edmonds is going to be the 3rd down back, and he's going to be the backup. He doesn't have that 3rd down back sort of appeal to him, then he's going to be losing touches to Chase Edmonds. He's going to be losing target opportunities. I'm not touching him until double-digit rounds, honestly. That's where I lie. How about you?
I don't think it's a hot take at all. I'm in complete agreement. I will not take him until double-digit rounds. That's for sure. everything you said is correct. I do not trust Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask to run any offense below 4 yards per carry last year. No part of this I want. Not only do I love Chase Edmonds as a receiving back, but I do think he wins that role. Nothing here. I wouldn't be looking for touchdowns. I wouldn't be looking for, completely out. Will not draft him.
But a guy that a lot of people are in on, you are out on.
Yeah.
Andrews. Talk to us about that.
So this one, I don't think a lot of people are going to agree on this one, but just hear me out. He's on an offense where he's been pretty much the one for years, and Lamar Jackson's favorite target. He's a fantastic tight end. Don't get me wrong, love the talent. But the best receiver he's had with him is Marquise Brown, who, while fantastic, is not only sometimes that guy that goes in the deep routes, so not always getting thrown to. Mark Andrews is kind of on that under or breaking route, so he gets it. Or Marquise gets the best corners, so he's a little bit more locked up. You throw to Mark Andrews, This year, you got multiple guys to be excited about in the passing game, or at least more excited about. Odell, who Lamar Jackson wanted personally to be on the roster. You don't ask for a guy like that and not throw to him, which I'm still not in on Odell. Dave Flowers, Rashad Bateman's there, which he's had some unfortunate injuries, but he can still come back and be a factor, that's for sure. I don't trust the running game at all, so if the running game was a little bit more there, I would have Andrews a little bit lower than I do. And Lamar Jackson runs too, so that's not something you want. So I'm just not thinking he's going to be as good as he has been. That's where I'm at.
I would definitely put Hawkinson over Andrews. All three of these receivers would really have to stink for Mark Andrews to finish as a top 2 tight end. So I'm partially on your page about that one.
Don't get me wrong. He's still top 10 in a tight end league that isn't exciting exactly, but he's gone way too early for me, and I don't think that he's going to have put up those same numbers.
That is fair. Speaking of someone else who's going way too early, and this pains me to talk about as a Saints fan because I love the dude, and he did pretty well in his first preseason game. But the ADP that I'm seeing of 5th, 6th round, Andrew Miller did just get hurt though. But anyways, he's injured for the first 3 weeks. So you already are just filling a roster spot where you can't find a diamond in the rough in the first 3 weeks. You can't do anything. And then come week 4, he'll still have a role in this offense with Derek Carr. So I think let's just throw out the first 4 weeks. Up there in age, he's about 28 now. He lost his step a little bit last year. And I know that the offense got a big upgrade with the quarterback. And like I said, I'm a Saints fan, so I want to be for Kamara. But I just don't see him outperforming 22, 23 other running backs. I think he'll still be pass catcher out of the backfield for Carr. I think he would be a good over-the-middle guy, still get his catches, but I don't see him really putting up 20-point games this season unless we're facing Arizona or somebody just completely terrible. But that's just my take there.
Yeah, I'm with you. He is on the decline. Kendre Miller's there. Jamal Williams is there. Kendre Miller, I saw that his injury, it wasn't anything big. I don't think he'd give a timetable when he'd be back or anything, but he's not going to need surgery or anything. It's not going to be season ending, nothing like that. So he's still going to be there. Jamal Williams is a guy that I personally hated watching last year. He's, once again, one of those RB2s that somehow ends up with way more points than he should have. He's that goal line guy getting all the touchdowns, while he's probably almost definitely not going to have as many as last year. He definitely is going to take at least some of those. If there's anyone that's proven to be a great goal line back, it's him, and you're not going to not use that.
I think you hit it nail right on the head of just, the goal line opportunities are going to be lacking for Kamara too. So with him, especially if Thomas and Olave can stay healthy and the other weapons there can stay healthy. A guy that we already kind of talked about and touched on, DK Metcalf, you're out on.
I'm out on DK Metcalf. Like I said about Marquise Brown, he's that guy on the roster that's going to be getting the best cornerbacks. He's going to be getting all the attention. And we saw it last year. He didn't do fantastic. And especially when you get 2 other guys behind him who are just as capable. they're going to be thrown to the guys that's getting a little more separation. So we saw it last year. I think it's even more so this year with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yeah, definitely not somebody I'm going for that early. Don't get me wrong; he's a great talent. He can get contested catches. He can do it all, but not where he's going.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think there's no reason to force a throw to DK this year. I think last year maybe Gino could go him and make some plays, but you have Lockett, you have JSN, you have Walker and Charbonnet on the backfield. His value should be probably around lower for where he's going. And else who I think is in the complete opposite of a crowded receiving room, but I'm still not in on is Cooper Kupp. I'm not going to lie. I think that the sole reason that – actually, no, that's a lie. The two reasons that I am out on Kupp are A, because of his hamstring injury, which I know he's going to be ready by week 1, but to already be dealing with a hamstring issue as a wide receiver before their year's either going to linger or get retweaked or something, and that really worries me. And number 2, health in all this too, his elbow, because if you don't have a good quarterback throwing you the ball, you're not going to put up the 20 per game that Kupp used to be putting up. So I think Kupp will definitely have his extremely explosive games, but he should not be the second or third receiver off the board. He should be outside of the top 6 picks at least. I like Kupp. I had him when he had his giant breakout year, even though I lost in the playoffs, which was so sad. I'm off on him as my last bust. I feel like, just has re-injury risk, and I feel like with Matthew Stafford, it's just too much of a risk.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this one too. He's going way too early. I think he should be more of a second round consideration, if not maybe a little lower. I don't know about that though. As you said, the hamstring issue, we saw it with Keenan Allen last year. Is not fun to watch something like that at the beginning of the season. Injuries like that. That's why I was out on Najee Harris last year. He had that preseason injury, stuck with him all year. He was looking rough until the end of the season. As you said, Matthew Stafford, that's not an elbow you want to be. You want throwing you the ball. Don't get me wrong, still a fantastic quarterback. He's made insane plays within multiple injuries in game, but still not something you're looking for in first round value. And especially with one of the worst defenses on paper, that means they're going to throw a lot, but it's also meaning you're going to lose a lot of games. And it's just going to be, that's not one of those players that you're going to keep tossing out there like, hey, go do your best and try and get injured for next season, So, yeah, not somebody that I think should be going as high as he is.
Absolutely. And our very last bust, if you stuck around this far, kudos to you. You earned my appreciation at least. But both of us, I think, are not in on as the last bust. For you, is the division rival for the Steelers. I agree with you on this one, honestly, so go for it.
Yeah, he's going way too early. Honestly, I don't think I'd select him in the first 8 rounds, personally.
8 rounds? That's okay. That's a bit much.
No, listen. There's a lot of guys I like over him. There's a lot of guys even in those 7-8 rounds right now that are wide receiver ones. But no, he is not getting the target share you want behind Jamar Chase, even in a great offense, a great passing offense. He's not getting that target share. He's not having as many fantastic games as you want. And even with Jamar Chase out, he's still not getting that target share that you're looking for. He's not even kind of taking over Jamar Chase's target share when he's out. I honestly don't see the floor or the ceiling that people see in him, and he's just not somebody I'm going for.
I think that's absolutely fair. I would agree with that. I think if Jamar Chase goes down, he's in value, but Jamar Chase isn't exactly an injury-prone type of player. You already have the calf strain on Burrow, which he should be ready week 1, but calf strains are an injury that you tend to retweak. And like you said about the target share, it's just not where it should be for someone who's going as the wide receiver 12, a top 15 receiver. So I'm kind of out on him too. And that is our boom and bust list. That was a long list. But again, if you guys made it this far, thank you so much. We appreciate the first episode support. We're going to try and pop out probably like 2 a week, maybe more, maybe less. It depends on our schedules, but we want to try and get you some NFL content leading into the season and all season long, because I know for me, I am always deprived of football content. I just want more of it. Next episode, we're going to be talking about our fantasy football drafts that we just did last night, Monday, August, whatever it was, 14th. I'll talk about that in detail here a little bit for our next episode. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate the hell out of all of you.
And we love to hear comments from you guys or anything. We want to be that, have that inclusive part of our show for sure.
Yeah.
But like he said it all. He did great. Thank you for listening to the Moving Chains podcast.